Hello, Facebook world and YouTube. We're just going to take a minute before we start. We don't have the intro. We'll give people a little bit of time to log in and say hello. No background intro today, guys. We're just gonna give it a minute to let some people realize that we started our live feed everywhere. Give all my people the opportunity to message me just as my show starts. Thanks. All right. Hello, welcome to Pardon My Positivity. I have to turn off sound somewhere because I have feedback. There we go. All righty. So welcome to Pardon My Positivity. My name is Paula, and I am your host here on Pardon My Positivity. During the day, still, I'm an accountant, and at night I'm a bartender, but I'm a happy chick all the time. Not because life is easy, but because I choose to be happy. A couple years ago, we decided to start this program, Pardon My Positivity. Last year, we decided to start it so we could help other people find positivity in their lives and make their life a little bit happy on a regular basis. So about every 2 weeks, we pop on and we give you some advice and pointers on how to put happy at the top of your to-do list every day. And this week, I have a very special guest. My guest this week is not only an educator from the Lehigh Valley, but the guy who taught me most everything that I know, because he also happens to be my father. So Richard Shoup is our guest today, and tonight we're going to be talking about using learning to make your road to happiness a little bit smoother. And in true educator fashion, the man who taught me how all I needed to know at a very young age about public speaking and preparing agendas for such meetings, prepared a wonderful agenda for tonight's meeting. So I'm actually going to let him be the main speaker of tonight's show, and I'm going to follow his lead so all of you can see where I got all of my splendiferous ways from. So I'm going to let him start off by introducing himself and leading tonight's program. Hello, Senor Shoup.
Hola, mi amor. Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, I kind of feel like I was destined almost to be an educator from as far back as I can remember. I don't remember a time when I didn't want to learn and share what I learned with other people. And I found myself in very, very fortunate circumstances, which allowed me to develop that sense that I really wanted to teach, I really wanted to help, and it was going to be possible to do it. I just believed it was going to be possible to do it. From that age where I thought you dream about something and it comes to pass. I'll begin with a quote from a friend at Notre Dame University, Father Pete McCormick, who said, if you want to change a life, which is, of course, what we're talking about here tonight, start with education. In a sense, education is where things start. I mean, from earliest age, we imitate what we hear, we try to replicate what we hear, and we develop gradually, very slowly. My backstory, as I said, led me to believe that I could do this. Not only did I feel that I wanted to do it, but that I felt that I could do it. And it started with my mom. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, like most moms in the 1950s and early 1950s, when I was beginning to educate myself. And I was firstborn. So she put in a lot of time working with me, even before I began kindergarten, so that by the time I got going in grade schools, I was feeling really confident. And at some point, she really bought into it to such a degree that she began to acquire a lot of other things. I mean, we were not an affluent family, so buying an encyclopedia from the guy that came around and offered to sell you an encyclopedia for $10 a month for 3 years, it was something she wanted to do. And so she filled the house with books. She worked with me. She taught me how to read before I even began kindergarten. And then my brother was born 2 years later, my sister 3 years after that, another sister 2 years after that. And pretty soon we were in grade school. I was in 5th grade, 6th grade, and she was letting me work with my younger siblings, even to the point of making quizzes for them to help them with subtraction, or to help them with spelling, or to help them identifying things. And so I began my life as a teacher with my brothers and sisters. My own education was, I was very fortunate in my own education to have very competent and very loving, concerned people who dealt with me. In elementary school, it was such a breeze in elementary school. I really felt that I had very, very few problems dealing with the challenges of elementary school. I kind of actually, at that point, developed enthusiasm for learning to such an extent that I just wanted to learn as much as I could learn. I was reading at 2 or 3 levels above everybody else. I was actually researching as a 7th or 8th grader, building my own handwritten encyclopedia about animals. My mom was able to get me admission to the upper level of the library because the kids' books were way too boring. For my 9th birthday, I asked for a membership in the American Museum of Natural History. By the 10th birthday, I was memorizing poetry, to tell you the truth. I went with my grandparents to Massachusetts to visit relatives, and it was a long ride. It was all two-lane highways, and so I brought some of the encyclopedias along. And by the time I reached my 12th birthday, I was really so captivated by the melody of poetry that I was reading to myself as we were driving along that I began to write myself poetry myself. By then, we went to Massachusetts, my brother and I and my grandparents, like 8 years in a row. And by my 12th birthday, when I began writing poetry, I was in junior high. And in junior high, where guys who wrote poetry weren't held in high regard. So I shared what I wrote. I shared what I wrote with my family and select friends. And it was at that point that I began to meet those kinds of people who are going to try to have an influence on your life. especially if it's going to be a negative thing, which it kind of was. I shared what I wrote, like I said, with my family. In 8th grade, still in junior high, in those days it was 7th, 8th, and 9th. In 8th grade, my mom finally stopped making me have Halloween parties. Because my birthday was in October, we always had to have Halloween parties. And by the time I was halfway through junior high, I really wanted to have stop having Halloween parties and dance and have some sort of party with people of both genders. And actually, it was in 8th grade that I had the first girlfriend that I could honestly be able to call a girlfriend. I wrote several poems for her,
Oh, there
which
you
she
go.
shared with others. And then the pace of the mockery on the gym floor and the locker room only increased. The school was 10 blocks from our home, and we had to walk there and walk back. And I
Uphill?
generally walked with my friends. In those days, Easton had a whole series of elementary school buildings located in individual neighborhoods. And I would walk to and from school with the guys in Dutchtown. We were the Dutchtown gang. This was the part of Easton where the descendants of the Germans who had come to the United States lived. And that's what my dad's family. My mom's family were Irish, so they had their own section of town. And when we were walking along and the other guys from the other gangs started to get insulting, we could hold our own generally. I was sailing along, to be honest, with my friends until my English class then in 8th grade decided to present Romeo and Juliet, and the teacher insisted that I be Romeo. And that was the end of the year, so it wasn't too bad being made fun of. At the end of 8th grade, my dad decided that we were going to move to a farmhouse that his friend owned, who had to go to Florida for a year. We were going to take her to the farmhouse, and we were going to live in Moore Township. And I was going to go to Northampton High School in 9th grade. It turned out to be a war, because now I got it. Now I actually got it. Moved away from my family. My family had a certain rep. My dad was a tough guy. And so you didn't mess around. And my mom was pretty tough too. So you didn't mess around with the kid who's had a tough mom and a tough dad.
Oh.
But they were in Easton, and we were in Moore Township with the farmers. No offense to farmers, but we were the city dudes, and they were the country cowboys. And it was a long bus ride to and from school every day. My brother and I were always on the defensive. The misery was broken, thank goodness, by my success playing Will Parker. In 9th grade, the school did Oklahoma, and I was one of the characters. And in the musical Oklahoma, if you know anything about it, Will goes away to visit Kansas City, and he comes back and he sings this very bawdy song about the things that go on in Kansas City. And that kind of gained for me a certain amount of respect with the guys in the audience. In April, my outlook and my character changed dramatically, thanks to a lovely farm girl living nearby. After that, I stopped caring about what other guys said, and my attention, to be honest, turned to women. And we moved back to Easton. The newfound excitement discovering the female sex was mitigated by my grandfather's death. He died, and the realization that my family's business was failing. So a long talk with my mom made it clear that if I was going to be able to attend college, I was going to have to forego most of the extracurricular activities of high school and study and study and study.
There we go.
And so there it is. That's my backstory up to the time when I study and study and study and win a scholarship to Lafayette. And then I come in contact with those individuals, 4 in particular, a Spanish teacher who changed my whole objective to be a biology teacher to being a Spanish teacher, and a professor at Lafayette who took me under his wing, and he was just relentless in insisting that I use the ability I have. And then on to graduate school at Lehigh, where another professor took me under his wing and made me do this incredible amount of independent research, some of which was published. And then off to Mexico to get a second degree. And the president of the university there decided that while I was there for 5 summers, he was going to use me to be his translator and his helper. And these wonderful people just made me believe so strongly that you can do anything you desire if you educate yourself enough, and if you have the very good fortune to come into contact with people who really, really believe in you and really, really want to help you. Which brings us to, what else do you do? I mean, I have had a great life. I'm really smart. I know so many things about so many things. And I love that. I love being in that situation. And I've shared that with my children, and I've shared that with so many other people. But let's talk about the other reason that you can use education in your life. And that is what?
So let's interject for 1 second and remind people that if you want to comment, we're on Facebook on my personal page, and we're on the Glitter Shoes and Happiness 2 page. I'm gonna make a real quick comment to Ron Jr. and say, see, you wondered how I can talk for an hour. My dad barely took a breath. This is where I get it from. Yeah, so education to recap for Rich, my dad, education was a driving force in his life at a young age with the influence of his mother. And some of the things that he pointed out were not only did it help him to get through, learning helped him to get through some sticky bits in his life, but also something else that we bring up all the time and that I love to say to people is that you should nourish the relationships that feed your happy. And he specifically talked about 4 relationships that helped him to grow as an educator, but that also helped him to flourish as a person. Those 4 people that he mentioned, the one Spanish teacher, the person at Lafayette, this person at Lehigh, and the president of the college in Mexico, where they really helped him to grow as an individual. And that's one of those key points that we bring up all the time when we're working towards a healthier, happier life, it's okay to let go of the relationships that drain you, but feed those relationships that help you to flourish, because the ones who are matching your energy and who are giving back to you are the trick of you getting from here to here in a better, healthy, happy life. So we have a quick comment from Diane Rummer. I always say her name wrong, honey. So she was a friend of Aunt Sue's. So we're going to say hi to Diane. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to everybody else who's popping in. Donald, Ronald, David, Ryan. We see you. Thank you for being with us tonight. Tonight we are talking about using learning and education to improve your positivity. And the next branch of our show tonight, we're going to talk about the benefits of education on dealing with life's problems? Yeah, dealing with life's problems. So the way you can use education to or educating yourself for dealing with life's problems. I know personally, just my journey to happiness when January 2022, and I was a miserable mess, and I decided that I wanted to be a happier person. The first step in that was not really saying I want to be happier. It was getting out there and figuring out how I could do that. So I had to learn how I could improve my life every day. And I happen to share that with all of you on a regular basis, but those were all things I didn't know. Some of them I knew, but didn't implement. But a lot of the things that I do now, I had to teach myself those items. Like, it's okay to remove negative people from your life. Like, surround yourself with things that make you smile, even if, sometimes people think I'm a little childish because I have unicorns all over, or rainbows all over, but I don't care if they think I'm childish, because when I see a rainbow, I automatically smile. And that's okay. If that's what makes me happy, that's what should be there. So, benefits of an education for dealing with life's problems. I'll go back.
Well, benefits of education in general, the most things can be researched. I pride myself, gently, not sinfully. I pride myself on the ability to do research and to stay at it till I get answers. And I'm not searching for the answers I want. I'm searching for answers. And a lot of times I'm getting answers I don't want. Mm-hmm. And then I have to deal with those situations. So when you have problems, and I have to be absolutely honest and say, I kind of painted a nice picture of my life, because up until college graduation, things were pretty smooth. And after that, things kind of went to hell. So at one stage or another, there was a difficulty, a real serious difficulty. And it had to be dealt with, really quite simply. And so when you find yourself with a problem, a serious problem like that, there are alternatives. You can try to ignore it. You can accept it, or you can decide that you're going to solve it. And of those three things, ignoring it and accepting it can be problematical. I mean, you can accept it, realizing that there's nothing you can do about it, or you can accept it and decide what else you might be able to do. But the biggest thing and the value of education is that you can search out a solution. You have a problem, and there are lots of problems. I dealt with the problem of a death by taking the skill I had in writing poetry and writing my grief out. And that's, the poems weren't necessarily morbid by any standard. They were just things I wrote. I abandoned rhymed poetry because I had already published one collection and of more or less traditional poetry. And I began writing blank verse, just unrhymed stuff, jumbled, and in the minds of a lot of people who I shared the feelings with, or who purchased the books, what was in your mind? This is so, it's kind of confusing. Well, that's the explanation. That's my explanation. What I was doing was solving a problem. The problem is I was dealing with my grief. I was dealing with my sorrow. And it was helping me to end it. It was helping me to grow away from it. So I think that finding something, which was my solution in that particular case, and there were other situations where I had to come up with a solution, and the solution lay in finding out what could be done about something. And we are very fortunate to be living in the 21st century, because that has given us access tremendous access, almost unbelievable access to solve problems, because you can just search
Mhm.
any topic you want. And I've been up some days, nights, for hours, because you know how it is. One thing will lead you to something else, and that will lead you to
Down the
something
rabbit
else. And
hole.
all of a sudden, you found the answer to something you wondered about 3.5 hours ago when you went down to get the second cup of coffee. So I think that education itself is so valuable in getting you to programs like this, meeting people like Paula. Now, in addition to that, education really does help in dealing with not only the problems themselves, but dealing with the people. The people on previous episodes of this show, Paula has talked about people trying to control yourself, your life. And again, I had a heart attack in 1991. And one of the first things that my cardiologist insisted upon was that I go to a stress reduction class so I could identify my stressors.
Mhm.
So important, so important. You get a problem, you're feeling awful. If you're feeling awful, if you feel sick all the time, if you have headaches, if you just don't want to get up in the morning, you can't sleep at night, all of those things could be related to the stress that's in your life. And so if you take a course like that, or you'll get a book like that, or you'll go online and watch a program like this, you can identify your stressors. Now we're back to what I talked about before. What do you do once you've identified your stressors? Well, you confront them. You have to confront them. That doesn't mean you have to fight with anybody, but you have to accept the fact that even though you don't want it to be, even though you're married to this person, even though this person is your kid, even though this person is your dad, you're going to have to confront your stressors.
This is
Hopefully.
insanely important, and a key thing in being healthy in any way is communicating, right? So if it's a person that's your stressor, sometimes it's things that are a stressor, but if it's a person that's your stressor, you have to find a way to communicate. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so what this helps you to do, I think, because you won't have only one stressor, understand that. There'll be other stressors in your life, and that is people or things you have to do or situations, objects, jobs. But once you've identified your stressors, then you can arrange them in terms of priority. So you can prioritize things according to your life, prioritizing these issues that are your life, and then decide where to start working. The bottom line with identifying the stressors is at some point you get often to the point where you don't want, people tell you it would be bad for you to make the decision you want. You don't want to make the decision that you have to make. You know that there's going to be consequences, bad consequences, but sometimes you just have to break what needs to be broken. There's something in your life, there's a connection in your life, and you just have to break it. And
Yes.
I've done it. I've done it, and it hurt. And there are times when I think about it, but the day after, you feel so good. So you can feel so good the day after. The day after you berate yourself for accepting that situation for such a long time, you feel so good. And it's not even over. I mean, you break what has to be broken, but then there are consequences that come back to you as a result of that. But I want to tell you, having done that a number of times, when you finally break what needs to be broken, you're healed. You're kind of healed.
That's the thing, right? You can't you're saying break what needs to be broken, but the reason it needs to be broken is because this thing is constantly harming you. And you cannot heal if something is constantly harming you. You know, be it a person, be it a situation, be it, whatever, animal, it doesn't matter what it is. We're mostly talking about relationships in this instance, right? So we're talking about someone who is consistently harming you in an emotional way or a physical way. They are consistently inflicting pain. And just like your physical body, if you are wearing a pair of shoes that constantly rubs your stinking pinky toe every time you wear them, eventually you're going to have to get your pinky toe removed because you are consistently letting this pair of shoes cause harm to your pinky toe. And until you get rid of that pair of shoes, your pinky toe can never try to heal. And if you let it go too long, you're actually going to lose the pinky toe. These are the kind of examples we use just to make it really simple for everybody to understand. It's I say all the time, if something pokes you like this over and over and over again, it doesn't hurt when I'm poking myself like this, but I'm going to get a bruise, and that bruise is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually I'm going to wake up one morning and be like, why the heck does my arm hurt so bad? And it's because somebody went like this for 19 years. So you have to remove those people from your life, or remove their ability to affect your life. Sometimes you can't can't get rid of people, but you can remove the impact that they have on your life, because that's the only way to stop that. And once that stops, then your bruise can heal and you can become a better person. That really gets my goat. So, all right. So you're confronting your stressors, you prioritize your stressors, you break what needs to be broken. So that's how educating yourself can help you deal with people trying to control your life. What do you have? Some other points you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, a corollary to it is that you don't realize what you're doing to your health.
Mm-hmm.
So many people have no idea what they're doing to their health.
Yes.
For example, you do this, you break what has to be broken, and you're going to find out you're eating less. And the reason you were eating so much is because that's how you were dealing with the stress.
That's exactly it.
Now you stop smoking. You smoke less, at least. You drink less alcohol. You don't drink alcohol at all. You exercise more, because when you're exercising, you're sweating and you're moving around and you're thinking about other things. You're thinking about, oh, damn it, can I keep on running at this pace on this treadmill? So I think that there is that. It's just the side benefit to making the decisions to get yourself out of situations that are causing you so much stress, that you're going to feel better. You're going to be better. You're going to be healthier. And I'm going to tell you something else. You're going to just have more fun when you are not being pulled down all the time, when you're not waking up in the morning with nagging thoughts about how am I going to deal with this person or this situation or this job, or you're going to have fun. You're going to feel so much better.
Absolutely. I just told somebody the other day that, I spent so long in that spot where every single day was just pulled down, dragged down. And right now, sometimes there's moments where I'm so happy. I think, this can't really be real. I have to be dreaming, or this has to be like there's a joke involved or something, because how can I be this happy when it was not that long ago that every day felt like I was dragging myself out of bed. And that was one of the biggest things, was to remove that negative energy, remove the stressors, pretty much all the stressors in my life. Like, and right now, people who follow my page, you get little tidbits, and soon enough, everybody will know everything that happened, but little tidbits of things that are happening in my personal and professional life that should have blown my world to smithereens in the last month. And I'm like That's all right. I got this. I don't know how I can handle it because I'm not, I'm living up here. So something hits, you come down a little bit. But when you're living down here and something hits, forget it. You hit rock bottom. There's nowhere to go. You can't go anywhere else. So, well, and my health, I'm almost 50 years old and I'm more healthy now than I was at 23 because my attitude has so changed and that impacts your health. So, and it improves your mind too, right? Education improves your mind.
Yeah, it really makes your outlook a lot more positive. It makes you think about and maybe agree to do some things that you didn't think you would do before, you would try before. I have had the good fortune to have my children live with me. Many of my adult children have had difficulties in their own lives and have moved in and lived in my home for a while. Recently, for a month, my youngest daughter, Paula's youngest sister, and her husband, they got in this situation where they sold their house and the new people moved into the house and they were homeless. I mean, jokingly homeless because we had already arranged for them to move into my townhouse and all four of them occupy the guest room and of course the rest of the house. And it came with a 3-year-old toddler and a 6-month-old infant. And so you can imagine my life changed so dramatically. The whole mixing the formula and fighting with the kid to eat it and changing the diapers. This kid can't stand to have more than 10 drops of urine in his diaper. So we had to change his diaper so much and falling asleep on my chest on the sofa. You rethink when you're in such a positive frame of mind. You rethink solutions for other people. You actually think about other people's problems and then say, I thought about this. I thought that you could do this or we could do this. I can help you do this. So I think that you feel more once you've confronted these. Usually it's individuals. It could be situations. It could be just the work in general. It could be a health issue, or it could be something else. It should be an international or a national issue that really can occupy you and cause you a lot of stress. But I think if you learn and you improve your mind, then you actually do become more empowered. There's no way about it. I've often said that the one thing that nobody can ever take away from you is the education that you have.
Yep.
You own it. That's yours. You work for it. You got it. You can share it, but that's yours. You could lose your money. Your health could fail, but what you learned, and in fact, the way you learned how to learn and what to do with what you learned, that's yours. You own that, you keep it. So I would say that improving your mind, it helps you to become empowered. It helps you become more confident about who you are and what you can do. It also helps you, in my particular case, I would say the more I tried to educate myself about things, the better I got at doing critical thinking. A lot of us just think about the first thing that comes to our mind. I do it. Think about this solution. I'll do this now. And it gets messed up. And then I say to myself, why did you do that? You did that because you didn't pause. You just reacted instinctively and it didn't pause. So I think education helps you to develop critical thinking. Also helps you to persevere. Just keep going to the next step, going back and rethinking something. It also makes you And again, here I go again with talking like forever, but I love it. I'll be honest with you. It's just such an instinctive thing. You know, a lot of people
You're saying
say,
important things. It's okay.
a lot of people say, I hated that class. I hated that public speaking class. I was so scared in a public speaking class. I was never scared in a public speaking class. I liked it.
Either.
I should not say I like to laugh at the other people who were having, well, I should say I did under my breath, laugh at the people who were struggling because I didn't understand why they were struggling. You know, and just standing up there, it's a classroom, there are 15 other students, there's a podium in front of you, you could hunch over and you can just say whatever you want or read what's in front of you. I didn't understand why that was such a big deal. And I still don't understand why that's such a big deal. And I think my children have, like this one, have picked up on that to an extent. They talk, they say what they think.
That's right.
They debate issues. Oh, our family is a whole family of debaters. Whenever there's any kind of an event, there's always a lot of disagreement, friendly disagreement, opposite thinking on things. And that helps you to learn how to communicate effectively. There's lots of ways to communicate, and there's lots of ways that people try to control things, but if you can communicate effectively, you can get the result you're shooting for better than if you try to just impose your will on everybody else. You try to use your credentials or try to use your strength, your forceful personality in order to win an argument. The other thing that I really, really believe is the more you educate yourself, the more creative you become. And creativity for me, obviously, I've published 2 books of poetry. Right now, I'm writing a novel. My children have asked me to write an autobiography. I said, no, I'm not doing that. You have to say the bad things. You have to put the negative things in. So I will write a novel. It'll be a novel about a Spanish professor who goes to Latin America, has all kinds of adventures, which means it's about my life, but
the names have been changed. Protecting the innocent.
It's creative. And that's the best part of it, is I'm having so much fun doing it, because then when they read the chapters, they'll look at it and they'll say, yeah, that no woman would ever believe that if you told her that kind of comment, that kind of evaluation. So I think educating yourself makes you creative. It's just an instinctive thing. And it also helps you to consider alternatives, because if you're doing research and you're learning, you're actually learning that there are alternatives to the way you thought about things. And then there are alternatives to the things that you already learned about.
Yes.
And to be that open-minded, and it doesn't mean to give up your values, because I'm a very, very solid valued person. So don't ask me to yield on any of my fundamental values. But on the other hand, I will listen. I will listen to someone making an argument. I will listen to somebody expressing an idea. So there are alternatives to just about everything. And when you study, when you improve yourself educationally, you make yourself more open to even looking for some of those alternatives to the obvious. And then on the big scale, which I'll say later on, but say something else. More.
Well, thank you, Trixie. Trixie's like filling our feed with names she's tagging of people so that they visit. So thank you, Trixie. And we have a whole bunch more people popped in: Pam, Brennan, Josh, Chad, Michelle. So thank you all for stopping in with us. I wanted to say, just pop back real quick and say about the ability to communicate, how Rich was talking about. It's better when you're trying to get your point across that you communicate with people rather than try to use force. use your authority, use anything. In my experience, the point is the goal is not really to win the fight or to win the argument or something. It should be that the people you have a relationship with, you want to improve your relationship with them in the end, so that whatever the end result is, the journey, they always say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, and communication is that journey to that final destination. So regardless of what it is that the problem is, your family's spending too much money, and you got to curb the spending, right? So you have a conversation with everybody in your family about curbing the spending. You could simply say, nobody's spending any more money, that's it, I'm the boss, you're done, blah blah blah. But that'll just make everybody in your house miserable, and they'll try to find ways to get around the not spending. They'll be angry at you, they'll hate you, whatever. But if you sit down and learn to communicate and work together in your communication with your family, then you guys are making a decision together not to spend all that money, so that you can do something like, I don't know, like my daughter's planning a trip to Disney World where they have to budget better in order to go. And as a family, they're working on that. Whereas she could have just been said, we're not getting any more takeout, nobody's getting any presents for this and that, and we're not doing this. But instead, they're working together. So I wanted to pop back to that one. And I also wanted to say, when we were talking about consider alternatives to the obvious, throw a little tidbit in there. Even as human beings, our ability to understand the world evolves constantly. You pop back 100 years and we were giving women lobotomies to stop PMS. You know what I mean? We are so much smarter as time goes on. So educating ourselves as a society is so important. So educating yourself as a person, instead of being closed-minded on any one topic, is just as important as us evolving as a society, as far as our understanding of our world and our lives. So plead with everyone to please keep your mind open as to learning new things in the world around you, because I'm glad I didn't have to get a lobotomy because I have a menstrual cycle. It's wonderful. I didn't have to have that. So keep learning about the world, and you'll not only be more educated, but you'll actually make better decisions as you grow. All right. So, but speaking of the world, learning about the world, on the bigger picture, we're improving the world by
sharing.
Yes, by sharing and by learning and by
by being willing to share. That's an important thing. I mean, education for itself is great. I love it. I do it all the time. I've done it today. I do it 50 times a day. If I'm in a supermarket, I'm learning, I'm seeing, I'm learning names of new fruits and vegetables and the only reason I'm learning it is because it's kind of a cool word, or I'm going to maybe try that out or something like that. So, and then if I find something, I'm going to share it. So just by learning about things, no matter what it is, whether it's fruit, or whether it's what's happening in a telescope somewhere, if you have the slightest interest in it, take a look at it. It's so easy. It's on your watch. It's on your phone. It's on your computer, obviously. And then if you find something that's really interesting, share it. If you were to come into my kitchen, on all the cabinets, you can't see wood on the cabinets. The cabinets are all covered with quotes from people, because I love it when I've had people come into my kitchen and take out their phone and take pictures of the quotes, because they saw in 3 or 4 or 5 of those quotes, they saw something that they wanted to remember. They wanted to remember the exact wording of it because they wanted to say it or use it again. So educating yourself allows you the opportunity to share what you know. Again, I think the more you educate yourself the more you are inclined to research until you have reasonable explanations for everything. Every time I read the after visit report from one of my physicians, I read the standard report of what you do next, and then I read their notes, because I just want to learn what a doctor thinks about what you said or what your condition is. Now, I have a daughter who's a nurse, so, you know, I have a backup there, and I have very good medical staff, and I have a lot of medical problems, so which I don't really regard as terrible problems. After all, I'm 77 and still alive, so clearly they're being reasonably well controlled, those issues. The other thing I think that being educated, well educated in particular, helps you with is socializing. You wind up socializing people who value the same things that you do. You wind up socializing with people who are interested in the same topics that you do. You even wind up socializing with people who are in the social circles of members of your family. And I delight in that. And I delight more than anything else in socializing with my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, because these guys, apart from the, you know, wiping butts and eating formulas and stuff like that to little kids who can't talk, they do have, little kids like that do have a big smile, and they do have a giggle. And socializing with other people is something that really comes from being educated and knowing things. They'll ask you questions, especially kids under the age of 10. They'll ask you questions. They'll believe what you tell them, and they'll believe what you tell them because they know that what you told them before was true. I don't always do that. Sometimes I kid with them, but you know, that's what grandpas do. The other thing that I value tremendously is my education has helped me to connect with people across borders. And I mean literally across borders. I've been in other countries 45 times. I love it. My second favorite thing is to sit around and speak Spanish with people. I do it in every conceivable context. If I just overhear a teller at a bank talk to somebody further up in the line, I will address that person automatically and hopefully carry on a conversation. Learning other languages is great for that, but you don't have to learn other languages. You just have to be accepting. You just have to, I have to tell you how many times I have looked up quickly on my phone a few basic expressions in another language, a language I never spoke, because I know that if I can say, hello, how are you, to a person in their own language, their faces brighten up. It's like, and then of course I have to admit that, okay, those 10 words I just said were all I know, but you just knock down a barrier. So you can cross barriers, and they're not only linguistic barriers, there are other barriers too. There are barriers that we put up for gender. There are barriers that we put up for race, ethnicity, handicaps, and you can connect across those kind of barriers. You can pursue your passions, and by being passionate about things, you can energize other people. Even if it's not the most important, even if it's not the most interesting or the most important thing to them, you can energize them to can think about this guy. Then they walk away and say, oh my God, that guy, he's really crazy about that. And then they think, well, is there anything I'm really crazy about like that? You know what? I think I might want to do something about this. I used to do that, but I don't do it anymore. So maybe I'll give that a second chance. My advice, though, if there is any advice for me to leave, is I am so happy that I have been a lifelong learner. And this event tonight. It's a learning experience. I'm so happy to have that, to have had that. I'm so happy that a bunch of people tuned in. If I know you, I'm very grateful that you decided to log on and listen to us tonight. And I hope that I have educated you either literally at some point in my past, since I taught as a high school teacher for many years, and then a college professor for many years. But I do hope that you enjoyed yourself amongst everything else. And thank you to my lovely daughter.
Well, I obviously, I also consider myself a lifetime learner. People who are friends with me in real life, they'll hear me all the time saying stuff like, "Oh, you made me smarter," and I get so excited when somebody, even if like he said it might not be the most interesting thing to other people, but when somebody he takes the time to teach me what's important to them, even if it's just a little tidbit, like the fact that whales die of old age, that's a tidbit that I didn't previously realize or understand, and now I know. Or my journey through learning soccer, right? What am I going to use that for in my practical application of my life? Not a whole lot, but I'm a smarter person, and it gives me the ability to communicate and relate to a broader spectrum of people, because now that I understand football and I actually can follow along with things, now I can have. Just the other day at the pub, somebody came in and he was actually an exchange student from England, and so then we got to start talking about the Premier League, and we both agreed, as long as we don't follow Man City, blah blah blah. So it actually, learning football let me communicate with at least a half a dozen people in the last 2 months that I would not have been able to carry a conversation on with, or would not have found a commonality with. So I love when people make me smarter, when it's smarter about mowing my grass or smarter about the circumference of the moon, whatever it is. I love learning. So, but most importantly, and most important to my life at this point in time, the education that I've learned in the last year regarding my own mental health. For those who might be new to the show, I struggled with depression and suicidal thoughts for long periods of my life, almost my entire life. I have dealt with huge depression problems, and which were complicated by having relationships with people who were suckers, like takers and drainers, and I just did not have the ability to improve that part of my life. And by continuously learning in the last few years how to improve those things, now I can take on anything. I feel like I can take on anything. For the first time in my life, I love myself. For the first time in my life, I look at the relationships, the strong relationships I have, and I'm like, God, that's a healthy relationship. That's a healthy relationship. That's a healthy relationship. I don't have unhealthy relationships anymore. I don't have takers anymore. I have matchers. I have givers. I have, utopia when it comes to my mental health, which I came from, like the depths of hell. So really want to push with people that educating yourself, just like Senior Shoop talked about all night, Dad talked about all night, educating yourself helps you in so many ways, but it helps the world around you too. Like I'm incredibly blessed that I get to sit here and share these stories with you guys. I can't tell you how many times in a month people write to me and say to me that I see your smile every day, and I hear what you write every day, see what you write every day, and it helps me get out of bed. It helps me to see that I can find the goodness in a day too. And I can't be more blessed than that. I have 4 amazing kids. I have 4 wonderful grandkids. I have 9 super fantastic siblings and a huge family. And the fact that I also get to help other people outside of my circle is an amazing blessing to me. You know, I'm leaving a positive mark, and at least I hope I am. And that's all because I decided I needed to learn how to do this for myself. And then I decided I needed to share this with everybody else. So we're going to wrap up tonight. It's 9:01 now. I love when it was so easy to fill the hour, right, Dad?
It was. Piece of cake.
So easy to fill the hour. So
Yeah, we didn't even have to tell jokes. Like,
yeah.
what did Mother Buffalo say when her son left for college?
Bye, son.
Yeah. We didn't even have to do that.
Oh my goodness, my goodness, my goodness.
We have fun. As a family,
do.
we have fun. I recommend it
Yeah.
to everybody
So
listening.
the next show is scheduled for 2 weeks, but then I'm gonna do a little bump. I'm gonna do 2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row. One, because with the Easter holiday coming up, but two, we want to get to the second half of happiness after the narcissist. So that's not gonna be in 2 weeks. I'm gonna try to fit that in on an odd week, because that's why I'm having problems connecting, because I need an odd week. So keep watching my feed for your daily influence on happy, and watch for the next time we're going to have a show and what the topic will be, which will be in 2 weeks. And thank you all so much for your support of my endeavors into positivity. Thank you to Dad El Guapo for coming on tonight and talking about learning and using your learning to improve your happy journey. And
hasta luego.
yes, we'll see you guys. Oops, there, I do that every single week, every single time. We will see you guys soon. So until then, remember, the key to your happiness is you.